Well, good morning. My name is Eric Eversole. I'm the president of Hiring Our Heroes. I'm also a vice president with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I'm also have the honor of serving in the U.S. Navy as a reserve officer in the JAG Corps. And I can't tell you how excited I am to be here this morning. You have to love a good military event that we're running 5 minutes ahead of schedule. So everybody's a little bit winded. We had to run up, and if it had been 20 years ago in our military career, none of us would be winded. But as you can see from the panel, that's not necessarily the case. But we couldn't be more excited to be here. You know, the purpose of this panel is really to help you, the employers here in the room, learn from some real experts in this area of veteran recruiting and hiring. Folks who have been out there on the front lines each and every day, instituting and creating best practices for doing so. We have a really diverse panel here. And with that said, I want each of them to start out by introducing themselves, who they work for, what military service they have. And from that point, we'll go through a series of questions for the panelists, and then we're going to open up to you all to answer any questions you have. So with that said, I'm going to start out and ask the panelists to introduce themselves and who they work for and their military experience.
Good morning. Mark McKean from General Motors. I'm not a veteran, but my father was an Air Force veteran. That's why my passion is here. And I work on veterans recruiting, the GM Career site, and GM Careers social media.
Good morning, I'm Marvin Darty. I'm a 24-year Air Force veteran. My first half of my career was as a security policeman, second half was an Air Force recruiter. I work for Strategic Staffing Solutions here in Detroit, but I'm out of San Antonio, Texas. I'm the sourcing team lead and military liaison.
Good morning, all. My name is Kevin Preston. I work for the Walt Disney Company. I'm the Director of Veterans Programs for the Disney Enterprise. I spent 28 years in our nation's Army.
Mike Kelly from Usaa, and I want his voice. I spent 25 years in the Air Force, and I am privileged to lead USA's veteran hiring initiatives.
Good morning, my name is Rob Ells. I spent 22 years in the Army, recently transitioned out, and currently work with Quicken Loans in their veteran hiring program.
All right, good morning. My name is Bob Lemire. I spent 5 years in the United States Marine Corps as an infantry officer platoon leader for Weapons Company. I currently am the Vice President of Global Sourcing at Whirlpool, and I'm also one of the working leads of the Whirlpool Veterans Association, and I'm very happy and proud to say that Whirlpool actually is a Silver Medal MVAA Veteran Friendly Employer Award winner. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all for those introductions. I want to start out with the first question, and this is really directed toward the veterans on the panel, because what's unique here is that you have some really industry leaders, but also veterans, and I think they have a very unique perspective. And I'm going to start this question with Mike. Could you tell the audience a little bit about the value proposition from your perspective of why you want to hire a veteran?
Well, most of it really boils down to their ability to adapt and overcome. The flexibility that military members have to learn new missions. It's really not about what they can do for that particular job for you. We can teach them how to be a call center operator. We can teach them how to work in project management. Really what you are looking for is their ability to learn quickly and a bias toward action of getting things done. So the value proposition, I mean, we could go on, all of us, all day for the many values that veterans and military spouses bring to an employer, but those, I think, are some of the biggest ones.
Right. Rob?
I agree. You know, I couldn't have said it any better. It's really, and I think Kevin says it all the time too, it's veterans know how to make stuff happen. Doesn't matter what you ask them to do, they're going to make it happen. And it might be a challenge to some hiring leaders when trying to help a veteran define what they want to do, because we've been trained to basically say we can do anything. And so for folks that aren't used to working with veterans, when they hear that, it could come across as indecision, or they don't know what they want to do with their lives. It's the furthest from the truth. It's that they can. Give them a task and they'll get it done.
Yeah, I would also like to add, veterans bring a natural sense of teamwork and selflessness to the workplace that doesn't so naturally exist in the business environment sometime. And when the rest of your employees see their dedication to we make it or we don't as a team, that can be inspirational. That can drive that teamwork mindset that a lot of corporations could use to improve on.
Anyone else? Kevin?
Yeah, I want to toss in one thing. I'm going to deviate from the value proposition, just go on values. The military stands, the 5 branches, on a set of core values. And these are words like courage and integrity and service before self. These words are the pivotal point in a veteran's life. This is how they live their lives in the military, how they live their lives post-military. They live by a code, live by honor, and live by integrity. So when you hire a veteran, you will get everything my colleagues discussed, plus a moral compass that does not deviate.
Great.
So I think we're all in agreement there's a tremendous value proposition for hiring veterans, and hope you all agree with that too, but we see it each and every day, and I certainly our panel of experts see that as well in their own business practices. This next question's for Mark. Hiring Our Heroes U.S. Chamber, we've had the tremendous privilege of working with GM on their veterans hiring program. It is a world-class program. Can you tell the audience a little bit of what are some of the core ingredients for a successful veterans hiring program?
Sure. It's truly a partnership. The Hiring Our Heroes career fairs and the MVAA help us to find great veterans. I could really recommend any Hiring Our Heroes career fair conference. You will not be disappointed with the caliber of the veterans you will find. Finding the veterans, finding a match for your jobs are the key, and having a great partnership with your hiring managers, leaders within your organization, your HR business partners are crucial, because some of the people that will be making interview and hiring decisions may or may not have been at the Hiring Our Heroes event. So they may not understand how a veteran's resume or MOS translates into the civilian world. So we work as partners with our hiring managers who go out and recruit with us, as well as our HR business partners, to sell that value proposition of the veteran. In addition to what you've heard here, how veterans can help change your culture in a positive way, they bring many, many skill sets into the organization that aren't readily transparent. Some of the skills, such as learning agility, learning on the fly, and dealing with the ambiguity, are strengths that veterans bring in that can really positively change your culture. So conveying that in an interview and that face-to-face interaction with a hiring manager and setting the background, and then working tirelessly to make sure those veterans truly do get onboarded once they're hired, are the key for a successful partnership.
Bob?
What was the question?
The key ingredients for a successful veterans hiring program. This is an easy one for you.
Okay, there's a couple key ingredients, I would say. First is you need a connectivity to your HR group and your talent acquisition group to legitimize your process, to make it official. It also helps if the organization will make a numerical commitment to how many veterans they're going to hire. That also helps make it official and gets the organization on board to drive towards hiring those veterans. The big thing that we found, though, the big element that helps is you have to find somebody in your organization that takes it personal, that has a powerful passion and emotional commitment to get veterans into your workforce. And you need to find them, and then you need to empower them, because they will help you do whatever it needs to take, walking resumes through the organization, talking to hiring managers, coaching veterans. But you need to find somebody that's going to take it personal and drive that process with a passion and an emotion, that, because if you let it just happen naturally, it's very difficult. But if you can find someone with that passion and then empower them, that's a big help.
And I'd throw one thing out there as a thought for an individual that has that passion. If you want to hire veterans, have veterans hire your veterans. It's a pretty natural connection.
That's a good point. At Whirlpool, our veterans are involved in the whole recruiting process. We screen the resumes, we coach the veteran applicants, we talk to the hiring manager, and we have veterans in every interview that a veteran does at Whirlpool.
Can I add to that?
Yep, absolutely.
I think there's 3 things really, and we've seen this certainly at Usaa, and I'm sure that my colleagues up here can attribute their success to this as well. It's having that person, and for us, it was our CEO, that top-down commitment. So you've got to have the top-down commitment, otherwise it won't happen. We were stalled for a couple of years because we didn't have that top-down commitment. The second thing is a shared commitment across the enterprise. So it can't just be the CEO. It's got to be the lines of business. It's got to be the staff agency. So everybody committed to that. And then thirdly, like you said, you've got to have a belly button. You've got to have somebody who's responsible for bringing it all together. Otherwise, it'll just be disparate things happening across the enterprise with no synergy and no significant impact.
Kevin.
Yeah, can I toss? Two things I wanted to toss in. We talked about top-down leadership. When Disney started their program 3 years ago in March of 2012, our chairman and CEO, Bob Iger, stood before our shareholders meeting, that is how important this is to Disney, and announced Heroes Work Here. The next year, he went back and reiterated and re-upped the program. So top-down leadership is pivotal. Next, if you think about the equation across our country of those who have served versus those who have not served, it's not a criticism, it's not a good, it's not a bad, it's just what is. You have to bring the military to the HR community, to the diversity community, so they understand this population and explain to them this background, this culture, the nuances we've all talked about with the military, because they behave a little bit differently in the process of finding a job.
Thanks. Marvin.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple things. When we're out doing career fairs, one of the things we try to do is do a risk analysis. So you look at their soft skills versus their hard skills. So we already know what they bring to the table. When you have veterans looking for veterans, you know what they bring as far as the core values, everything we've already discussed. But then you realize their hard skills. They might not be exactly where you need them to be up front, but if you're willing to take the time, they'll get there. They're quick to learn. They've already done it and proven that over the years they spent in the military. The other thing is you've got two different kinds of veterans that come out. As an Air Force recruiter, we recruited high school kids, and then we recruited health professionals. The high school kids needed you to kind of direct them where to go. They needed that help. They weren't sure what to do next. Health professionals knew what they wanted. They just didn't know if you could offer it. So same thing with veterans. You have these veterans that only been in for a few years that kind of need direction. They need to know what you offer. Can I get you there? And are you the right company and the right fit? Then you have those guys that come out expecting to get and do what they did on the inside in the military, and you got to kind of let them know that, hey, here's what we offer now, and can we get you there as well?
That very helpful. I think you really hit on all the big points, and I think you'd all agree. I mean, many of these principles, and really all of these principles apply whether you're a Fortune 500 company or a small company. You have to have that top-down commitment, and then you have to have the folks down in the field who are executing that commitment to bring veterans into the workplace. And I think Marvin really teed this up from a question about the hiring aspect of it. And hiring can be challenging sometimes, especially in a place like Michigan that doesn't necessarily have a major military installation like Fort Bragg right next to it. So I want to turn it to the audience and really, or to the panelists about, from your perspective, let's talk a little bit about hiring and what are some of the strategies that you all use to find and source that veteran talent into your business? Who wants to start with that question?
At GM, we have a major initiative right now to hire IT professionals and engineering professionals. As cars become more and more complex and we move towards self-driving vehicles, there's some very specialty skill sets that we need to recruit for, such as cybersecurity to make sure your vehicle is safe, thermal displacement to make sure the heat from all the electronics in a car is safely dispersed. We find that veterans, especially those that have graduated from the service academies with engineering degrees, have those type of skill sets and have the learning agility to come in with fresh thoughts and inspirations on how to help us to get where we need to go as a company. So we go out to groups like the Surface Academy Career Conferences, Military Mojo, and also the Hiring Our Heroes career fairs with dedicated professionals from those functions to talk with individuals, to sell the value proposition, frankly, of General Motors to and overcome stereotypes about the industry. It's very cutting edge, but a lot of people, until you really start to have that conversation, don't know that. So it's a combination of being aware of what opportunities you have, conveying your company values, and finding the right venues for your vets. With Hiring Our Hero career fairs, we found that very successful. The MVAA is also a phenomenal organization to network with. I had an example of one of our tier 1 suppliers who was looking for group leaders, first-line supervisors to lead the men and women who build their product, and they wanted to inspire and get a cultural change. So we connected them with the MVAA, who quickly got them hooked up to see some non-com officer resumes and suggested a couple of career fairs, and they've already hired 7 people based on that connection. So using the MVAA connections networking with your peers and finding out what type of hiring events have the veteran skill set you're looking for can really help you on that quest.
Right, and Rob, I know that Quicken's been very innovative in bringing military talent back into Detroit. Can you talk a little bit about your program?
Sure. So I'll take it on the opposite end of the spectrum. And we talked about a little bit earlier, one of the panel members said about reaching out and trying to help those veterans that need a little more guidance. And so at Quicken Loans, thanks to the innovation of our Vice President of Recruiting, we created a program called the Tour of Duty. And that's specifically designed for the younger, recently transitioning veterans. And it gives them an opportunity to shed their uniform and spend 6 months within our company at various stages, learning what it's like to work on the civilian side of the house. Now, do we guarantee everyone's going to get hired? Absolutely not. But the worst case scenario of our program is someone has an entry on their resume that says, I worked at Quicken Loans for 6 months. Best case scenario is they've done well, they've lived out all these values we're talking about, and now they're a valued team member within Quicken Loans. And kind of the beauty of our program itself is our very first graduate of our Tour of Duty program is one of our veteran recruiters. So it's phenomenal.
Well, we should at least introduce that.
Sorry, I should. So Justin, please stand up. Justin Mendoza served 6 years in the U.S. Air Force. And it was a little over a year and a half ago that Justin joined our program, and since he started, not big numbers like Disney, but we've had 72 veterans come in to that Tour of Duty program, in addition to other veteran hires, but that specific program. So Justin's a great asset to be able to talk to the younger veterans about what we offer, because he lived it.
That's great. Mike.
I think each individual company is going to be different because you're looking for different talent in different locations. So be more interested, I think, in leaning into how you can make yourself more military friendly and draw them to you rather than going out to find them. And a lot of that is just being involved in the Hiring Heroes program, aligning and supporting these types of events. And when you make yourself military friendly, those veterans are going to find you.
Yeah, I would like to, first of all, substantiate the Quicken Loans thing works, because Whirlpool has recruited at least one person away from that program. Additionally, I would say maybe a third of the veterans we hire actually come from that informal flow that you talked about. They know who the veterans are in our organization now, and when Sally's got a brother that's getting out of the Marine Corps or just graduating college, they bring us their resumes, they let us work them through the system. So I would say maybe a third of what we hire flows from them knowing we're veteran friendly, knowing who the veterans in our organization, and that informal influx of resumes by that methodology.
Kevin, I kind of turn this question just a little bit different, just because I think you have some really unique perspectives on this, given your work with the Disney Institute. What do you think are some really best practices for smaller businesses that are just really starting their practices? Maybe they're just looking locally compared to a larger company that may be looking to fill jobs nationally.
Great point. So first of all, I want to state these programs are not dependent on business size. They're not dependent on the size of the business. The practices can be applied by any company with any quantity of employees that wants to hire veterans. One thing I offer is you will hear throughout the day very large numbers about veteran populations. You will hear the quantity that transfer every year, 150,000 plus, the quantity in sequestration, the size of our U.S. military. They are immense numbers. Don't get bogged down in the immense numbers. This is as simple as one veteran. It is one veteran at a time for your hiring program. One of the frustrations veterans have in doing this is they are leaving an organization they know very, very, very well and very comfortable in, and walking into a place that is new to them. In the job application process, to drop a resume and then hear nothing, and I know both sides of the equation, but for the veteran, it gets really frustrating. So back to the individual points of this, as much as you can within the bandwidth of your capacity, help a veteran. And helping a veteran may be doing that one-on-one coaching for a resume for 20 minutes, helping with a network inside your company. But if you look at this as one veteran, you'll move the yardstick very, very quickly.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, if every small business in this country hired a veteran, I can tell you there would be no unemployed veterans in this country. Marvin, Strategic Staffing Solutions, you guys have been really tip of the spear in finding innovative ways to hire veterans and really expose them to different opportunities within inside of your business and your business opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, one of the things we do is kind of divide and conquer. We have a team of 21 sourcers, and there's almost a sourcer in each of our 24 branches across the U.S. So that way we reach not only to the places, San Antonio, we're blessed, kind of be military town USA, but not every branch is like that in our company. So some of them are far removed from any base, any installation, anything like that. So those guys have to reach out more and do community involvement. I think we had an earlier discussion, we talked about reaching the veterans long before they separate. That's kind of one of the keys. Get to them 6 months out. Go to these transition assistance programs. Every base has kind of a transition program that they provide to these veterans to get them prepared, but it doesn't always do everything because it's just an overview. To be specific, like for the state of Michigan, get involved to, the reserves, the Guard. Don't just look at active duty. Their spouses. That's kind of where we've turned our attention lately, is towards spouses. Don't forget about them because they served as well.
That's a great point. And just for small point of clarification, for those that didn't know it, MVAA is Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency. Been a tremendous partner and really a tremendous organizer of the community here in Michigan. And I think one of the things I'm hearing about hiring is, at least from your all's perspective, it's the key to partnerships. And could you all maybe just briefly talk about that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to this, the value of partnerships and how that helps. I love Bob's friendly competition about hiring someone away from Quicken, but it is a friendly competition. Let's talk about a little bit about
It truly is. I think all of us are focused on the mission of helping vets, and we'll often share candidates with each other if a vet doesn't particularly fit a job we have, but we think they're a good quality individual. The power of networking is so important. One of the things we do on a weekly basis is send out a list of our open jobs through the state of Michigan, who gets that out to the local leavers and DVOPs, local veteran employment representatives and disabled veteran outreach placement organization representatives. These are the people that work in the front lines with the men and women transitioning from the military. If you can generate the awareness of your jobs and the skill sets they're looking for, these folks can really help you connect with vets that match your skill set. That works really well. We work together with the MVAA. There's an employers council where we share best practices. We steal a lot of good ideas from each other, and it's all for the purposes of helping to get vets jobs.
I'd like to add to that. Our former CEO, Major General Joe Robles, who just retired earlier this year, always used to say, we're stronger together than we are apart. And that's really the coalition. This event, for example, this is all of us working together to have an impact. And our desire is to have a bias toward action. For the first couple of years of this initiative, as it began to grow, it was just a bunch of talking heads. And it was like, okay, we've heard that. Let's do something. So the formation of these coalitions, this event, 100,000 Jobs Coalition, which is led by J.P. Morgan Chase, and I believe Molly Balee is in the audience somewhere today. There are benefits. There she is over there. There are significant benefits to being aligned with those coalitions, like Hiring Heroes and the 100,000 Jobs Coalition, and I think Capital One has the Hire 500,000 Heroes. You get access to all this talent that is part of 190 plus companies. I know at least with 199 companies with the 100,000 Jobs Coalition. So be a part of that. It's not rocket science. People have already kind of plowed the ground. Go out there and start reaping the harvest, because there's a lot of good work that's already been done. You don't have to start new.
And that idea of giving way together. So last year, I was a member of audience when we were down in San Antonio when this was going on. And one of the things that really stood out from the morning panel was if you were to line up all of our business cards, some would consider us competitors. But in this business of hiring veterans, we're all on the same team. And so at the point of that seminar, I was very recently transitioned from the military. In fact, I don't even think I was officially retired yet. But I immediately took from that and I reached out to as many companies as I could, because the information's in the book there, find out who those POCs are and ask them, how do you do it in your company, and are you willing to share those tips? And veterans talking to veterans, they're like, sure, got it. All these folks on the panel, I reached out to all of them. And so I encourage you, it's a powerful network out there. Learn from what others have done.
And all of these resources are free, right? I mean, which is great.
Absolutely, and I would be remiss if I didn't point out in your books for this afternoon's seminar, there's a toolkit in there in partnership with the Chamber. USA has created, it's called Employer Roadmap. So essentially, All this information that you're getting here is available online, and we're continually adding new information and new capabilities to that site. But whether you're a small, medium, or large company, you can log on, create a profile, tell us where you are, what you need, some problem areas, and it'll deliver actionable checklists and things for you to do for your company. EmployerRoadmap.org.
Yep.
Eric, there's one thing I wanted to toss in. I don't know if Gary Profit or Walmart's in the audience. So I want to quote Gary Profit, who's the military gentleman at Walmart. And Gary and I were talking one day, and we kind of collectively used the phrase moral high ground. And we applied that in the sense that we don't compete in this arena. The focus is not on veterans getting jobs at Disney or USAA. The focus is on veterans getting jobs. And we can stand in front of veterans and say, we're concerned about you finding employment, not you finding employment at Disney. You can stand on that moral high ground, and they realize you are out for their best interest, independent of your business.
Right. That's great. I'm going to turn this next question over to Bob, because I think Bob raised a very interesting point about how once you create a culture inside of a business, it really becomes a self-perpetuating recruiting tool, because once people hear that you're a veteran-friendly business, veterans hear that, then you're going to get more and more applications. A big part of that's your Veterans Affinity group that you were one of the founders of. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of that Veterans Affinity group and maybe some quick tips on how to get it started?
Yeah, that's correct. It started about 3 years ago, as many great things do, with three guys having a beer. And we had a veteran who'd just gotten out of the Marine Corps. And first of all, it helps when the corporation has that diversity mentality, has that diversity culture. And Whirlpool had several diversity groups, and this individual said, well, how come we don't have a group for veterans? And, or do we have one, and then why not? And with that, started the process to do that. What you have to do is you have to, again, you have to go through the process with your HR group, or if you have a diversity group, you go through the process of making yourself legitimate. You have to give yourself, a name and a mission. Our mission is to recruit, retain, onboard, and hire into the organization community veterans and their families. And then as you do that, as you become legitimate in the organization, you do the things that you can with visibility. You recruit. We went to the Hire Our Heroes fairs. We did all the recruiting things. We do the community effort things. In our community, Whirlpool now donates all the appliances that go into the homes that Homes for Our Troops build for 3 years. And you build that reputation through the social media and exposure so that then not only your organization, but the community understands, oh, here's a place that cares about veterans and veterans affairs. And to be honest, it can also make the difference in the hiring decision for some of the veterans that you talk to. When they see you have a similar culture, when they see you support veterans and how you recruit them, how you onboard them, it can make a big difference. And that diversity culture is a big tool to officially give your effort more credibility and momentum.
That's it. I think that's great. I want to contrast with one of the oldest Veteran Affinities groups at USAA. Mike, talk a little bit about yours and what that purpose is and what does it mean to your employees and your veteran employees?
Yeah, it's a significant community. We just ran the numbers before we left. We've got about 2,000 veterans and about 600 military spouses that are part of what we call VetNet. And we really look at this group of employees to leverage their incredibly diverse backgrounds and the military experience. I mean, USAA is a company formed by the military to serve the military. So what a great resource right there at our fingertips. And many times the businesses at marketing might be wanting to do a focus group on a particular group of folks. Well, why spend the money to do that? You've got them right here within USAA. So we've been in place for 7 years, probably second oldest. We're now calling them diversity business groups rather than employee resource groups. But we're very active. We actually are the only resource group that has a full-time employee that manages the program. So Maggie Hahn is with us. She's a senior Marine spouse who manages that program. We've really seen a tremendous impact across the enterprise in how we can help build awareness, understanding, and appreciation for the military with our employee base.
Yeah, the thing that's good about it when you start a Veterans Affinity group is if you fill it with veterans or veteran-minded people who, again, have a passion, have a results orientation, and in 2 years, we are easily the youngest affinity group at Whirlpool. In 2 years, we are now the most active, the most effective, and one of the largest, because the veterans bring that drive to get things done to help other veterans. So it's very easy to raise the performance level and the visibility of your group with the population you'll have.
Great. Kevin?
There's also a sense of community in this. Veterans like talking to veterans. I can sit here and tell my good friend Mike Kelly my glorious war stories of my career, and Mike will politely indulge. Even though Mike was in the Air Force, he will still indulge me and politely listen. It's nice to have those people with shared experience just to chat with and talk to. And he might be the guy I turn to and say, hey, Mike, I don't quite understand this in the business. Can you help me out? So that sense of community is really quite important.
Thanks, Kevin. And I think part of this, at least from our experience, it's also very important in the onboarding process to have this sense of community. It can be very important for hiring. And I know that you all have worked very hard on hiring them, but you've also worked very hard on keeping them once they join your business. Rob, I know Quicken has really been active in this space, making sure that once you've got them on the hook, you're going to keep them. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So our onboarding process actually starts way before day one of them reporting in. And that's our commitment. One, the company's commitment, anyone that applies to Quicken Loan is going to talk to a human being. We don't screen candidates out with computers. And then we take it a step further. At any point in our recruiting process, if we find out one of our candidates is a veteran, then one of us from the veteran hiring team is going to reach out. Doesn't matter if we're the primary recruiter or not, or if they're looking for a military veteran-specific job within Quicken, we're going to talk to every single veteran. And the conversation is, number one, thanks for your service. Number two, thanks for your interest in Quicken Loans. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to reach out. So that's prior to them coming on board. Then when they show up, we're also committed. We do a day-long orientation for for all new employees. Well, part of the veteran hiring team, we reach out and grab the veterans. And again, welcome aboard. Day one on your new journey. As part of that welcome aboard, we've implemented something within our company, kind of recognize the veterans a little bit. A couple little examples. Their security badges are customized, U.S. flag behind their picture, branch of service on there, and we put it on a branch-specific lanyard. It's a small thing that a company can do, but it sparks conversation everywhere, in the halls, in the elevators, and it gets to what Kevin was talking about, that community. And so it's little things. It doesn't take a lot. It's just little things that you can do that make a huge impact. And to think about the younger population, the younger veterans that are scared to make this step, and you welcome them day one with something like that, it's like, wow, okay, this company really does care. So show it, do it. Find whatever, the little thing that you all can do, find it and do it, and they'll appreciate it.
Right.
We do some very similar things. We start the partnering process in the recruiting, where we sponsor them with their hiring managers and through that process. And then every veteran that's hired, we pair them with what we call a battle buddy, another member from the Whirlpool Veterans Association that's already worked at Whirlpool, and they meet once a week, more if necessary, for about a month or so with a checklist of things we do to make sure they're acclimatized both into Whirlpool and into the community.
I'm going to steal that idea.
There's no stealing, it's just sharing.
We've got little things, we've got our little badges that say USA veteran, and we've got military spouse recognition pieces. We've got a little flag that employees can place in their workspace so that the other employees know that that's a veteran or military spouse, and they can go to them for information. But I really like that badge idea.
I mean, it really does make a tremendous difference to help, onboard veterans, but also understand what your veteran population looks like. So those are all great ideas. They don't cost much, and I think that's great. One of the things that, Mike, you've raised, and I would be remiss if I didn't talk about it, but let's quickly talk about the value of a military spouse, because from our perspective at the U.S. Chamber, military spouses serve too, and they have tremendous skill sets that they can bring into the workforce. Can you talk a little bit about the spouse program and what you all do on that front?
Right. So we've got a couple of key programs that we're working. We're financial services company for the military, so 60% of our employees are on the phone every single day with our members, serving their financial needs and answering their questions and taking care of insurance or whatever that is. So it's a different world. The call center environment is very difficult, but military spouses have walked that walk. They know that experience. And who better to have on the phone with one of your members than someone who's experienced that, who's been through that challenge of deployment or PCS move or whatever it might be. So we're actually looking at building spouse-specific programs that will allow us to hire spouses. We'll train them in that particular region. We're looking, we've got a program in Chesapeake, Virginia, Fort Bliss, Texas, and I can't remember where the other location is, but we'll hire them there, train them there, and then they stay there. They don't come to the home office. They don't go to one of our regional offices. They work right out of their home, and sometimes that could be the military quarters on the installation. And when their husband or their wife or significant other PCSs, the job goes with them. So you really have to begin thinking about how to serve that particular audience, the military spouse community. And there is a significant amount of talent out there just waiting to join your company.
And the thing I would say is when you're looking at a military spouse resume, don't let your system allow you to bypass this talent. So I'm a veteran, but I'm also a husband. And my wife is the one that has handled the 15-plus moves that we made in 22 years. She found the school district. She found the doctor. She found everything to make our life run over and over and over. Is that on a resume? Absolutely not. But if you sit down and talk to these spouses, the talent that they bring is phenomenal. So please don't overlook them. And I would say just look at how your company defines veterans. We say it's service members, their spouses, and their families. So how do you define veterans? So,
Marvin.
And you'll know they're not as easy to find. They don't always put it on their resume like the veterans do. So this is where networking and your partnerships are even more important and really play a large part of that to reach out to those spouses. A lot of our clients, actually, Usaa being one of them, will ask that question. So whenever we bring a consultant on board, we ask them, are you a veteran or are you a spouse of a veteran? That way they know ahead. Usaa knows who's coming on board, and we know now because it wasn't in their resume. So don't forget to ask those questions. Sometimes you got to dig a little deeper to find the spouse than you do the veteran.
And it's unfortunate why you have to do that digging is because a lot of spouses don't want to let you know that because you might not hire them because they're going to move in a year or 2 years. So just recognize that just because they may move doesn't mean you have to lose that talent.
Yeah, and that's part of being the veteran friendly too. When you've done that a couple times, when you've hired a spouse, then you get the reputation for do that, and then you can have that conversation with the candidate when you're recruiting them.
Yeah, absolutely. And one fact I'll just throw out there very quickly is that spouses have a volunteer rate 4 times the national average. And oftentimes they put that volunteer work down in the other activities when they're working. They're just not being paid for it. So don't forget to look at that with the resume. I'm going to do one lightning round question, and then turn it over to the audience. So the question, very quickly, if you had one parting shot, one piece of advice that you would give to companies that are just getting started out or need a little extra boost in their recruiting efforts, what would it be? Mark?
Make contacts here at this event, build your networks, find great ideas, and just try one at a time and see what works. You'll have some starts, some things that'll work well for you, some things that may not, but you have to take that first step and try.
Great. Marvin?
Don't forget to reach out to them. I know a lot of times we get so many resumes from every source, but sometimes these guys are passive, and you really got to reach out to them, give them a chance. And the only way you're going to find them is to get out there and go to those transitions, go to the bases, go to the career fairs, go to the websites. There's a lot of them out there, and that way you'll find those vets.
Partnership, sharing, and on the veteran side, realize that when the veteran comes to you, this is likely the first time he or she has done a job interview in their life. And I will say it later on this afternoon, the first time you did anything in your life, how well did you do it?
Mike?
Not well. I would say take advantage of the resources that are already there. The great work that Jeff and his team at MVAA, Hiring Our Heroes, 100,000 Jobs Coalition, there is a significant body of work out there that you can tap into. So tap into what already exists, and don't be afraid to start your journey.
Rob?
I would say take what you learned here today, go back and educate your hiring leaders, those folks that will sit across the table from the veterans as they interview. Help them understand. If they're veterans, great, they got it. But if they're not, educate them on how this population is different than what they might be seeing.
Bob?
Yeah, I would say find your champion. Find somebody who's going to take it personal, be passionate, and then he'll find ways to get it done and reasons why he can't, and then you empower him. Find your champion and then empower him.
Great. So now we'll turn it over to the audience for questions. Do we have any questions out there? I'm sure there has to be some questions from this panel of experts. Oh, someone has a question. Don't be shy. Yes. We get a microphone. Let's see. It's coming. It's right behind you. Yes, sir.
Hey, good morning. Rick Cooley from General Motors, part of Mark McKean's team here. Happy to be on the front lines of hiring veterans. I'm asking the panel, what ways have you found effective in getting the hiring managers to understand the talent that's out there? We talked around it a little bit, but there's some actions within the company that have been effective for you to get your managers to understand the talent pool.
Great question.
So, one, by personally meeting with them and talking to them and showing them, the most effective way is hire one and show him what he does.
At USA, we have a pretty significant learning system and a lot of courses available for hiring managers. And we actually have one called Hiring for Success, and part of that module includes the value of a veteran and military spouse. So we actually, every hiring manager has to go through this course, so we've actually built it into the curriculum to demonstrate the value of veterans.
Yeah. Similar to USAA, we have 6 courses at Disney that we teach consistently around veteran hiring. There's one course on leadership that we teach about what is leadership in the military, because people don't know what that is. So we teach, instruct, coach, and develop.
Well, I think those are good. It's a great question, because we've seen that as well, is that sometimes you have great strategies, you got top-down leadership on this, but sometimes it gets down into the hiring manager level, and you may have a hiring manager that may not be as familiar with the military, so having that training program that helps them understand the acronyms or the value proposition can be very valuable.
Can I add something to that? I've got Kay Schwartz from our HR team here. We've got a dedicated military talent acquisition team member in Kay, and she actually works very closely with all the hiring managers. So if there is a military applicant, she helps provide that on-site support and insight for that veteran.
Thank you. Second question. Yes.
Good morning. Chad Toms, Reliance One here locally in the Detroit area. Proud supplier to GM on the staffing services side. But we're just going to kick off and start our program. Curious, a couple things. You're probably going to cover it this afternoon, but are there maybe tax relief or tax maybe refunds or programs where you can create some initiative maybe to further that program and then continue to give back? Maybe, and then also, another thing we're curious about is maybe hiring veterans as they just come off the front lines and training them, maybe you mentioned IT and those type of things, so get them up to speed, maybe run a training program for a while, and then obviously source them in the GM or other companies here locally.
And that's a great question. There are some great federal government programs out there for hiring veterans, both from, I think, tax incentives, but also resources. Could talk a little bit about that.
Well, we have a program at USA called VetFit, Veterans for IT. So we get funding from the Texas Workforce Commission. Is that right, John? Okay, Texas Workforce Commission. And the VA also started a program recently. They're kicking off in like 25 cities across the United States, Veterans Employment Commission. So they're putting a lot of funding into individual states. So there is a benefit to create these programs. And what we've done with VetFit is look for recently separated veterans who have a technology-type background. They don't have to have been a programmer or a network person. We'll actually provide the training. It's a paid training program, so 10 weeks of, I can't remember the name of the, Java, thank you, Kay. Java programmers. It's what all your iPhone and Android phone apps are based on. So we'll train them, then we'll put them side by side with a USAA IT integrator, and at the end of that, there's a job waiting for them. It's not, there might be a job, there is a job waiting for them. So we get some of that funding from the state and through Veterans Affairs.
The one thing you said, you were part of a staffing company, such as strategic staffing. What we did is we actually partnered with USAA. We did a fast track program where we brought our consultants, and they were all, the first class was pretty much veterans and spouses. And we put them through I think it was a 2-month program, and it was actually to get them to be a entry-level Java developer. So they were on contract with us for the first year at USAA, and then USAA took them on as a permanent employee. So we helped them get the training they need. They came in as initial, they were ready to go as a Java developer when they finished the course, and then they became a permanent employee of USAA after the year.
Kevin.
one last thing I want to toss in. Through a variety of U.S. military bases, there are programs out there while the person is still serving in the military. So their full compensation, health care benefits is all in the military. About 6 months prior to leaving the military, you can partner with these bases, identify your needs, and they'll do one of two things. They will look in their population to see what individuals leaving the military fit your job description. That's the short-term quick fix. The medium-term fix is if that group does not exist in that population, they'll build partnerships with you to train them and educate them to your needs in your company. And this is all done while they're on active duty in the military.
Yeah, and the VA has a Veterans Employment Center that has a lot of these federal government resources, so that's a good site to check out. But also, go to your tip of your spear in your state, the state workforce agencies and the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency. I see that we're out of time, and I don't want to get in trouble with the folks at Disney and GM for running over time. I would really like to give the panelists a round of applause for their great... And of course, I'd like to thank GM, the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, Disney, and Quicken Loans for helping put this great event together. So thank you all. Hope you enjoyed today. Thanks.